Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's lecture. We are at week 11. Yeah, we'll be doing camera technique. We'll be looking at doing the single camera and the multi-camera, and we'll also be looking at the. In my picture is not good here. We'll also be looking at staging and blocking for the camera. This lesson today will speak to our F2 briefs. As we all know that in F1, we had our single individual assessment on writing the script. So this is a continuation on that F1 assessment. So this time around, we'll be working in groups, and we'll be among our groups, we will choose the best scripts that we feel we can all put together and produce. Yeah, let me just by recapping on what we did on our previous lessons. We have looked at the pre-production. When we look at pre-production, we look at things like the production paperwork, or your call sheets, your short list. What else? Yeah, your storyboard. Yeah, and the shooting schedule. Remember, we said the shooting schedule will also be divided into 3 parts, whereupon we will have the pre-production, the production, and the post-production. We have been looking at that quite repeatedly, and I'm very much sure that you have the feel of how that's done. We also look at the budgeting. We also look at the director's treatment, how to write a director treatment, and we also look at I've also included in that lesson. Also included marketing as well, marketing and distribution. Whereupon you, once we have, or even in pre-production, you would be required to draft a marketing and distribution plan, which will be required by your investors. And yeah, if you have received your sponsorship from, say, the NFBF or the KZN Film Commission, there's quite a number of topics that we covered, which are also beyond our scope of academic study in this issue. That's just to prepare you to enter the industry. And yeah, we also touched on camera work. But we are still going to do some camera work in practice when we are actually shooting our scripts. Yeah, we did look at the camera movements and the camera angles and shot and types of shots, and shot angles and stuff like that. Yeah. Today, without wasting any time, recapping on what we have done already, which also includes the pitching. Yes, I think I even sent you an extract from the SAPC. It's just a booklet on pitching. It's called the art of pitching. We also discussed what we refer to as as the elevator pitch. Yeah. So for you to be able to do the elevator pitch is that you must be able to have a catchy log line, a syllable log line, and also your synopsis. Yeah. Yeah. Going forward, looking at the concept of blocking, and staging as well. So we have to, as a director, you must know the difference between the blocking and staging, because these are interrelated terms that can be easily be confused. But if you have if you can listen carefully and put it into practice, then you can be able to state the difference or spot the difference between blocking and staging. Yeah. The blocking and staging is twofold. One is blocking and staging your actors or your characters, and secondly, it will be blocking your camera. As we all know that our cameras always complemented by the lighting. Camera and lighting goes hand in glove. Hence, we spoke about cinematography, and we said the cinematographer or the DOP, the director of photography, is actually a lighting cameraman. So we cannot operate a camera without lighting. Yes, in some cases, then we can call darkness as light, because if it's have a certain intention, so to evoke some emotion, or maybe to carry on the story. Darkness is also one type of light, if I may say so. Yeah, at times it sounds crazy, but yes, it is. Yeah, I'm not saying even if you want to shoot in the darkness, you can just somehow drop in your camera and shoot in the dark. It must have a purpose why you're shooting in the dark. Yeah, also the lighting as well. In the previous lesson, we spoke about the 3-point lighting, where we have the key light, your fill light, and the backlight. And also, if you're using your lighting, then especially with the backlight, that separates your subject and the background. Yeah, there will also be some kind of a light just to show the audience where that's backlight, just to create an optical illusion that that backlight is coming from a certain source that will be putting on somewhere within your scene. And also the other greatest the biggest aspect that we spoke about is production design, because without production design, proper production design, that will be representative of, that will represent the world of the story. Because without a good production design, then our even if we can have the greatest of picture composition and greatest of lighting, but without the background of the camera programs, the production design, then our shot is meaningless, and we cannot be able to define where the story takes place, and even the world of the story itself. And also production design is very important, because it says a lot about the character. It says a lot about the world of the story and everything that's in the shot. And remember, we also spoke about something like the subtext, the symbolism, and the motif. That all comes with a good production design experience. Yeah. Blocking is actually the process of deciding how the director is going to have his actually, how can I put this? Make their or his or her actors or characters execute their business according to the script, execute their business in a way that will convey a clear message to the audience. So meaning the director will prepare before even going on set. They will prepare the actor's movement, the actor's interaction with the camera, the actor's interaction with the world of the story, something like your props, the costume, and even their body language, even their gestures when they speak. Yeah, I would also say the speech as well, because it's, as we normally say, it is not what you say, it is how you say it. So that will all go into blocking. The director will prepare that and write it down, because you can never keep everything in your head. You must always have something to refer to, because when you come into sets, being on set is very hectic. You are handling a number of people, your crew, your cast, and everything in between. Yeah, so you must have everything in writing. So that will be a part of blocking. So when you get to when you go on set, you come prepared with your script of blocking, of how you going to have your camera, your actors move on stage. Actually, you must have like a visual presentation of that. Even if you can have it in textually, well, you have written down. But the most important thing is having a sketch, like you make your floor plan. If you are in the studio, or if you are at on location, you would have done your technical recce, you have done your set design and everything. So you would know that you are putting at a certain, say on scene 1, you need like 3 characters. How are you gonna get those characters seated so that you can get a optimal angle, camera angle? And for you also as a director to get that optimal angle is also engage with your DOP, also your cinematographer, where it be the strategic point in your set to put your cameras. Yeah, and also the staging now. The staging is the part where you are actually on set or on location, where you are actually now filming. This is where now you put your blocking into practice, because you have decided, say you were in your studio or in your web desk, you were perhaps you even engaged with your cinematographer and your lighting person, and also your production design and all other crew involved, even your sound designer or your sound recordist. So when you are on set now, it's where you are actually putting your blocking into practice. So now you'll be staging your cameras, putting them into the right close position, and putting your characters into the right positions. And then so the staging will be I can say in short, the staging will be it will be your interaction between your camera movements and your actor's movement. So yeah, so it's everything. Now we are in action. So you don't want to see your cinematographer losing your actor when they pad across say across the room, and your cinematographer perhaps doesn't pan, or they don't use say a tracking shot that will keep your character and all his business in focus or on the frame. So that is where we mix the two together, the blocking and the staging. So the blocking will be the preparation of how you are going to actually shoot or execute the shooting of that particular scene, including your camera movements and your actor's business on that particular scene. And the staging now will be the actual interaction between your cameras and your actors. Also, one other important aspect here is that a continuity person must also prepare. So he also does his blocking, because the director will communicate that with the camera person. But now on sets, continuity person will have his own scripts now of how the camera, the actors or the cameras will work. But especially with the actors, that's where continuity person concentrates, and he will make some notes, because as we all know that in a scene, there's so many takes of say one action. If say you have done like 5 takes of one action in a certain scene, and your actor acts out that particular line or that particular action in different ways. So it makes life difficult for the editor when they're going on post, because all these takes, the editor will have to pick one take that the continuity person have made a note of, that this one is okay, we can use it according to what the directors has instructed them to write down. But if the gestures are not in sync, then we do not have a very good continuation of action when we put these shots together. So the continuity person will also be involved fluently in the process of staging, because that is where the actual action takes place. Which will go into post-production and assemble it into the final picture. Yeah. Yeah, I will just want to share a few, just a video here on film blocking. I'll just share a few videos so we can get to know how we do our blocking. Let me check here. I will just like if this is the right one. Oh no, we're coming to that because we are also going to look at the uh, camera techniques, how to do a yeah, I think this is the one. This is the one. Let's sharing it. Yeah, we're also going to look at using multi-camera technique or a single camera technique, because yeah, I'll speak about that one when we get to it. But for now, let's do sharing of this video. Let me see.
Stepped on my glasses. Little diorama I made. I want you to watch this on my phone. Movies have lots.
Right. Let me stop instead of fresh. Let me stop the share instead of fresh. Yeah, I think I'm getting the wrong video here. Yeah, I see.
Of cool scenes with like guns and fighting and stuff.
Shoot, I stepped on my glasses. Crap. Before I talk more about this cute little diorama I made, I want you to watch this on my phone.
Movies have lots of cool scenes with like guns and fighting and stuff, and more guns and knives and explosions. But every single time I watch a movie, I notice that most of the movie is just two people talking to each other. If you watch a lot of movies like me, chances are you've spent a good part of your life watching two people talking. So let's talk about how directors take a boring thing like two people talking to each other and make it interesting. Where an actor is and what they're doing and where they're moving, this is called blocking. Staging involves a camera in relation to where the characters are moving. So blocking and staging are important to understand. The simplest way to film a scene so you can edit it together later is with the triangle method. So there's two people talk to each other and you film the wide shot. Then you go to one side and you film an over-the-shoulder shot, and then you go around the other side and you get another over-the-shoulder shot, and now you filmed in a triangle, so we call it the triangle method, and that's how you film a scene. Now, this is not a very creative way to do it. Some directors say that this is how they film when they're not feeling extra creative or they're not really sure how to cover a scene. Just remember the triangle method and they're done. Now, if you actually want to do blocking and staging that has anything to do with the story, you need to understand the scene that you're filming. and specifically power dynamics in the scene. Usually in a scene, there's going to be a winner and a loser. Understanding these power dynamics can help us film a scene in a more cinematic way. If the person is winning, they can be standing and looming over another character. If they're losing, they can be sulking or sitting low in a seat. Something that great directors do is they show the power dynamics in a scene, but they also create shapes with the actors. You can see here a triangle shape. What these shapes are doing is they're controlling where the audience is looking. It's saying, hey, look at me, look at me. It's creating these lines. So an experienced filmmaker will use lines to draw the audience's attention to what is most important in the shot. Now, if two actors are sitting and talking to each other for like 2 or 3 or 4 minutes, it can get kind of boring. So a great rule of thumb is to move the actors every like 20 to 30 seconds. Have somebody stand up and move to the other side of the room. This is happening all the time in movies. Actors are moving. And what this is doing is making a more interesting scene. It's showing the power dynamics in a scene, and it's keeping you interested, making the scene not boring. That's our #1 goal. Not boring is better than boring. In a lot of TV shows, you'll notice that characters are always walking for no reason. Well, this makes the conversation a lot more interesting because the characters are doing something, and it drives the story forward in a visual way. Now, when you're shooting coverage for a scene, it's really smart to start with a moving master. Now, a moving master is a wide shot that's moving, and this movement is creating interest. So you film your moving master, and then you go in and you get your coverage, you get your medium shots, you get your close-ups. Let's take a look at some fantastic blocking from one of my favorite movies, Back to the Future. Starts with Doc sitting down. Now they both stand by the fireplace for a moment. Now Doc sits back down and Marty sits back down as well. Now we go in for some coverage. Marty stands up, he gets his close-up, Doc's in the background. We go back and forth for some more coverage. Doc realizes something. Now he's the one standing up and Marty is sitting in his chair. They've both switched places. Now Doc's standing up, talking to him. We go back and forth with more coverage. And now we're on that wide shot again. This is such effective filmmaking because they've used this wide shot so many times and made it look so different just by blocking the actors effectively. Now Marty comes in for his close-up. They look at a picture with nice lighting by the lamp. They realize something and it's on to the next scene. Here's some very simple staging tips. Now, if you're filming 2 people just sitting, talking, one common way to make the shot look a little bit more interesting is to film behind the action. This is actually really great for lighting because then the shadow side of the face is closest to the camera and the shot usually appears more dynamic. This shot from 500 Days of Summer is not behind the action. This is straight on. That's normal framing. And this shot from Napoleon Dynamite is also very standard framing, very standard coverage. I call this the walk and stop. This is when 2 actors are walking and then they stop because the camera has probably reached the end of the track. Then you go in for the coverage. Pretty simple. I call this the stop and walk. This is when 2 actors are stopped and then they start walking. One common mistake that beginners make is they break the 180-degree rule. Now, this can actually get pretty complicated when there's multiple characters, but when there's 2 people talking, you just draw a line between them and you make sure you don't cross it. Because if you cross the line and you film 2 people talking to each other, when you cut it together later, it won't look like they're talking to each other. It'll look like they're looking the same direction. The audience will get confused and the edit won't work. If you can't split the screen like this and make it look like they're looking at each other, you did something wrong. I've got something to tell you though. I've never filmed a movie before. But I make TV commercials. Good blocking is so important with short 30-second TV commercials because the audience has to have a very clear idea of what's going on in the scene. Something that we have to take into account with every TV commercial that we shoot is the 180-degree rule. We watch those eye lines and we make sure we're not crossing the line with the camera. Sometimes, visually, you want to.
Sometimes you want to go to the other side of an actor because it would actually look better, but that's not the possibility. You can't do that, especially with a short thing that needs to be cut together. You can't be moving the camera around all over the place and visually confusing the audience.
Another mistake the beginners make is they stack actors. This is when somebody is standing or sitting halfway behind somebody else. It's important to remember that each actor needs to own their own space.
So let's talk about this. A lot of people know what blocking is, but they don't know when to do it. Everyone comes on set and everyone just starts doing things willy-nilly without knowing the proper order. So this is the order. First, you block the scene. This involves the director of photography, sometimes the gaffer and some other key people, sometimes the producer. During this process, no one else is around. No one else is invited to the room, and it's quiet. This is a special working time for these creative people. Then the actors go away to makeup, and they're gone. If it's a big budget movie, they've got stand-ins at this point. And the stand-ins come in, and now the director of photography takes over, and the scene is lit. They use lights, and they have to keep in mind each one of these points where the actor is. The lighting needs to look good throughout the whole scene, right? So this can be a complicated process that can take a long time. Then, when the lighting is done, the actors come back. And now they rehearse the scene together. They make sure the scene is flowing in a proper way. Once the scene is rehearsed, tweaks are made. Inevitably, the lighting needs to be tweaked. Some of the blocking is tweaked at this point and is really honed in. Now it's time to film.
In the end, it's important to learn all these rules about blocking and staging, but it's also important to break the rules. Find a reason to break a rule, and if the reason is good enough, then you can break the rule. If you want to learn more about filmmaking and stuff, watch more videos by Epic Light Media, but don't subscribe to our channel because we don't need any more subscribers. Subscribe to another channel. There's a lot of other awesome filmmaking channels out there. Goodbye.
Epidemic Sound provides you with restriction-free music and sound effects that you can use across all of your content without having to worry about it getting taken down on YouTube. It's designed for creators so that you can save time, really find the songs that you're looking for really quickly and efficiently. It doesn't really matter if you're a video creator or if you create videos for clients, you can actually just pick whichever license works for you. This resource is going to help all content creators, regardless of what platform you're on, but also regardless of where you're at in your journey.
Yeah, I just wanted to stop this video. And then stop. Another challenge to stop this. Yes, folks, as we have seen on that video, that's it gives us a more details of on what blocking is. From this prison. It's prison. It doesn't do anything.
Hi, John Hess from filmmakeriq.com, and today we're going to take a hands-on approach and demonstrate how direction and blocking can change the same script into completely different scenes.
Christ, what's happening here?
To me, working with actors to create the scene is the best part of filmmaking. When YouTube Space LA announced that they were hosting a police set for use, I devised a little experiment to demonstrate just how important these choices you make with your actors are to your film. In this demonstration, we'll take a 2-page script of a police procedural and shoot that same script 5 different ways by changing the blocking and camera angles. Now, this script is about it.
Yeah, good is stopped, but I can see my Zoom screen now. I don't know what's happening. Yeah, it's not a challenge. Yeah, actually, I wanted to share another video so we can get a deeper insight on the concept of blocking. Yeah, before we move on to our multi-camera work. I don't know what is happening here. Just closing. Just closing. Nothing's happening on my computer. Yeah, okay, folks. It's yeah, we can carry on while I'm trying to play with this. I think my Zoom is still recording, even though I can't see myself in here. Yeah. So in the process of blocking is very much important because it saves you time when it comes to shooting your actual scenes. Because you come into your scene prepared, you know exactly what you are going to do. You are not like keep your actors and your crew standing while you as the director and the cinematographer and perhaps your gaffer, who's the head of lighting, and your perhaps your sound, trying to figure out how are you going to best position your microphone, your boom mic. Are you going to put it high up there, or are you going to put it at the bottom, maybe just below the knees of your actors, just to cut it out of the frame or of the shot. It's all time consuming, as it is time consuming right here, right now, because now everything just frozen. I'm just trying to get back on track. I'm not sure what is happening. Because all I wanted to do is to get rid of the video. I see, I think yeah, it was pausing. Actually, I actually wanted to stop the screen share. Yeah, yeah, I'm just gonna go on to another. Yeah, this one. No, I don't want this one. I don't want this. So we are still on blocking and staging, and now I'm just gonna share with you another video on how the directors block the actors. Remember, as we spoke about blocking the actors, you prepare first, as we have seen in the previous video, when the director and the cinematographer and production design and every relevant crew member was involved in that process way before we go on set, way before we invite anyone into the picture. Yeah, let me share this one quickly. We have just the delay due to freezing here. Right, here we go. I'm just gonna start it from scratch.
I'm Jason Tamerick. One of the key responsibilities of the director is to block the actors and the camera. Well, blocking is the technical term to determine where, how, and why the characters move around the set during the course of the scene. Well, blocking is also about the camera. Where do you put it? How does it move? And how do you frame each shot to best tell the story? Well, in this lesson, we're going to look at blocking techniques and how you can use them to produce a realistic performance that serves both the story and the technical needs of your production. Well, in a perfect world, we would have unlimited time and money. And as directors, we would be able to encourage the actor to move around the set however and wherever they wanted, drawing their motivation to move from the story. Well, the reality, though, is that the cast and the crew needs to know how and where the actors and the camera are going to be so they can dress the right part of the set. They know what part of the set to light, and they know how to prep the scene within the shooting schedule.
Filming is seen through a singular point of view, and that's of the lens. Yes, I know there's multiple cameras, but each one is a singular point of view. So staging has to do with seeing things from one specific spot. Extremely limiting. Not as limiting as painting, not as limiting as graphic novels. Nothing moves in those frames. So we actually have more freedom with a singular point of view than painters and illustrators. Part of directing and blocking is the art of organizing elements within a frame. And if it's done right, it feels absolutely essential to the story you're telling at the time. The dynamics of the movement within the scene, how people move, the speed at which they move, the geometric trajectories that they move, if it's done right, it feels just right.
When you block the scene, everyone involved in shooting the movie knows what this scene is about and where it's going, especially the actors. Because if you start a scene without having blocked the entire scene, then the actors find themselves working their way into the scene and saying, so where are we now? What am I doing next? And you don't get actors involved in the subtle business of a scene if they haven't blocked it. They don't become comfortable enough with the scene to actually do things like sit down and read a newspaper as they deliver their dialogue, or drink a cup of coffee, or get involved in human business. And it's pretty vital to the scene that they feel natural as they're acting. And part of feeling natural is that they get involved in business. They do something with their hands. They get involved in life while they're acting. If you've got two actors standing there with their hands in their pockets because they don't know where they're going next, it can be very, very stilted and hard to watch.
As a director, it's your job to break down the script so you understand how each scene works to support the story. Well, in much the same way an actor breaks down his or her character, you need to know what each character wants in each scene, what the character is really saying beneath the dialogue, and where the character is coming from in the moments before each scene takes place. Well, I go through these in much more detail in the lesson, Rehearsing the Actors. Well, these three factors play an important role in helping you craft real, organic blocking on set. When you sit down with a script to decide the blocking, ask yourself these four questions. Why is the character moving? Where is the character moving? When does the character move? And how does the character move? All right, let's take a look at each one of these in more detail. The most important question to ask is why a character should move during the course of a scene. Well, this sounds really simple, but the reasons why run deeply into what the character is thinking in that moment. On a very simple level, a character can simply walk to the refrigerator to get the milk because the scene involves her making a milkshake. But in a more complex scene in which, let's say, a wife has just learned that her husband cheated on her, the husband wants to move closer to her as he tries to apologize. But the wife is already positioned on the opposite side of the room, and she counters his move, always making sure that something, maybe it's a couch or a table, just something is in the way, prohibiting them from getting close to each other. See, by using the blocking to physically separate the couple, you're tapping into the psychological distancing underscored in the context of the scene.
Nothing is more important than the story. The story is, that's the reason that everybody's there. It's not the person, it's not the director, it's not the actor, it's the story. It's that thing that we all serve, and we're all tools to tell that story. So, where are we in this moment within the arc of the story? And there are so many different things to think about. Where's the character? Where's the character's journey at this particular point of the story? Up, down, happy, sad, depressed, motivated, determined, whatever. And that you have to understand as the director or the storyteller so that you can convey it to the actor. Here's where we are in the story. Here's where you are in your journey.
And when we did The Fugitive, I tell you, we were working on the script day and night. I mean, a lot of it was improvised, but I would go to the set in the morning and I knew what the one-liner was that I wanted to get done. You know, Kimball finds his blank. That's all that mattered. The whole day's work was about Kimball finding this. There are a lot of ways to get there. And working with the actors and with the sets and the texture of things, and we would improvise and then we'd write it down and say, this is what we're shooting. So a lot of times we would go to the set, improvise the scene based upon what dialogue or script we had, change it, adjust it, figure out the logistics and how we're going to cover it, and then lock that down, and that's what we shot.
Once you decide what the actor wants from the scene, like if they want to ask a girl out on a date, and the girl doesn't want to go out on a date, say that's the scene, then the guy is the aggressor, and the girl is trying to get rid of him. So that's his action is to seduce her, and hers is to get rid of this guy. So depending where you shoot it, like say if you're in a house, he would come in and he'd try to move toward her and she'd try to move away from him. If they're outside, it would be the same thing. You take what the actors are thinking and what their motivations are and try to adapt it to the movements that they do.
When working on a TV show, you have to maintain the artistic integrity in terms of how much time I have to shoot this and what the characters need in the scene. But you know, I think that's something that's solved in prep as opposed to what should be done on the set.
All those smaller behaviors is a collaboration between the actor and the director about how their behavior, how their character's behavior is going to pop out in a way that pursues their own need, but that also fits in with how the director is telling the story.
Because I come from an acting background, I have a very good instinct about when someone would move, when they wouldn't, because people don't move without reason. And if I can talk in terms of an actor's needs, in terms of why they would move someplace or not move someplace, it makes it pretty simple to block something efficiently, and having the money shots, you know, where they should be.
Well, if a boy is after a girl and they're both in love, but they don't want to say it, and they're talking about the weather, they're talking about, you know, other things, but their body language can show exactly how they're really feeling, and they're talking about something totally unrelated, and you block it for their bodies are saying, let's get together, and their voices are saying, you know, it's going to rain and looks like the storm's coming, and other unrelated stuff. So there's the dialogue on one level, the subtext on another, and the blocking is following the subtext.
Blocking a scene in a way that is not motivated by the story can make an actor look really foolish, and this can undermine the trust between you, the director, and the actor. So you always want to ask yourself, why is a character moving, and how is this unveiling the true intentions in the scene? All right, everyone, that's all we have time for today. If you want to see the rest of this video tutorial, if you want to
now, folks, yeah, I think this will be the end of this video. That's yeah. In blocking, as we are going to produce our F2 films, it is very important to prepare beforehand. And yes, we did our script breakdown, and we did our short list, and we did our what you call it? It's the storyboard. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we did our storyboard. So now, for us, before we tackle we go into production. Once we have chosen our preferred script, and we are prepared to shoot it, and we have all agreed in the group, and we're all on the same page, and we are prepared to go and shoot it. Yeah, like I've said, we are not going for mediocrity here. We need the best of our ability. So to get the best, remember on F1, we were supposed to do your, I think it was a short list or something, and also your storyboard. Yes. Once you have chosen your script, you are not expected to just willingly pick up that script and every pre-production paperwork that was required on during the submission, or that was submitted during F1, and you think, okay, we are sorted with pre-production. Here is our short list, here is our storyboard, and the person who, the individual or the student who submitted that a project has maybe got obtained 65% on the project, and you just assume that now this is the best, or perhaps he among the group, he is or she is the highest graded student, and you pick up and just scoop everything from that project, and then yeah, we are ready to go. We go and shoot. No, I don't think it will work like that. It won't work into your favor. Now it's your project now as a group. Yeah, you go back to the drawing board. You do the script. So like in our next contact lesson, because this one is a online, we are going to have a table read where we are going. We normally call it a script conference. We are going to sit down, relook at the script, reread the script, analyze the script, break it down, brainstorm the script, interrogate it, and diagnose it, so that we can, this time around, find any possible loopholes and try to tie it up now, because now we want to come up with a solid script, because it's not just a mere academic assessment. It is your ticket to the professional industry. So you have to behave, or you must behave as such, behave as a professional. So that's why I'm encouraging that as a lecturer, you constantly engage me in your process, so that I can give you guidance along the way. And yeah, the deadline seems to be a bit distant, but time flies. So it is important to work on it right away. So at the end of this video, I'm expecting you guys to worry me about any challenges that you might encounter, or if you have any ideas or suggestions that you want to run through me, I'm welcome to assist you. Yeah. Yeah. Now, because most of us, this is an academic assignment or assessment, which I do not expect it to be a substandard. I am sure that yes, I agree that we are all students who are new in this industry. Yes, we have learned the basics of a camera work and cinematography. Yes, and also the thing is, these films are a no budget films. They fall under a zero budget film. Yeah, which I always emphasize. That's yes, in essence, we might say it's a zero budget film because we didn't pay anything, or we didn't pay anyone. But time is money in this industry. Time is always of an essence, and time is money. That we understand quite well. But because there's a lack thereof, I mean the money, so we cannot be in a position of hiring a professional actors because we won't be able to pay them. But fortunately for some of us, they are related or have a network of professional actors that they can source in one way or another that may come on board and assist us. Yeah, but most of the time I'm pretty much sure that we are going to use a non-actors. We're going to use friends because perhaps they are humorous, they active, they always, yeah, they always bring life into our lives, if I may say so. Yeah, and we think that yeah, they can execute this. But actually, when someone is in front of the camera, they just freeze. Yeah, and the thing is, when I used to teach acting, I used to say the best way to execute a character is, or you as an actor to become a good actor is to react. This means that each and every action that you do as an actor, you don't just act it out of the vacuum. So there must be some action and a reaction from another character. Hence, our story is most stories are mostly based on conflict. So now, what to do when you are working with non-actors? Yeah, the following video is going to show us just that, using working with non-actors. Just want to go straight to this and maybe pick up a video here. I just don't want to pick up the wrong one. Yeah, and this is, yeah, this will be the one that we can share when we're working with non-actors, what to do. Yeah, let me share this one so we know exactly what to do when we're working with non-actors. Where it is now. Am I think, let's see. So did I pick the right one? Let me check again. I don't want to say the wrong one. So, this is not the one. Let's start fresh. Yeah, when I'm here, I can see the one that I'm looking for. And I'm going to share my screen. And find it. Let me look quickly. Where is it? Yeah, I see. See, yeah, I think this is the right one. Yeah. I'll just start from the beginning.
Not a lot of filmmakers are telling stories about the American Midwest. But Chloe Zhao is. And she's telling stories about people, not characters. From her debut film Songs My Brothers Taught Me, a look at the youth on a South Dakota reservation who have little to no say in their own prospects, to the Oscar-winning Nomadland, about the itinerant workers forced to postpone their retirements indefinitely following the 2008 financial crisis. Zhao's work depicts individuals at their most vulnerable. And for the majority of her career so far, she's been putting those individuals' stories to screen in a uniquely vulnerable way. Zhao's sophomore film, 2017's The Rider, follows Brady Blackburn, a rodeo cowboy from Pine Ridge, South Dakota, who, up until a few days before we meet him, was one of the rising stars of his local circuit, a man devoted to his work and to the culture surrounding it.
With Photo Vibrance, you can transform any photo into a mesmerizing moving image in just a few clicks.
But following a head injury, he's told by family and doctors he can't ride anymore. And so Zhao's film effectively chases the fallout of that blow, of a man with nowhere left to turn, living out of a trailer with his often drunk, ever prideful father and his younger sister, Lily.
Or respect about your favorite thing to do or not.
You're as stubborn as your brother.
Set against a remote, desolate landscape at the heart of Midwestern America, The Rider is in a very true sense a tale of the American cowboy. Only this isn't fiction or folktale. Brady Blackburn is a real person, played by Brady Jandrew, a horse trainer and former rodeo cowboy who was really injured less than a year before filming began, and who lends not only his story to the screen, but his body. As do Jandrew's father and sister, and the character of Lane Scott, a real-life friend of Brady's who sustained a riding injury of his own that's put him in a wheelchair for life. In fact, when Brady visits Lane in a rehabilitation center, the two reminisce over actual videos of Scott's rodeo days that can still be found online. Every role in The Rider, lead, supporting, background, was plucked straight from the Pine Ridge community. And it isn't just this film. Casting non-actors is an essential practice for Zhao, beginning with her debut film 2 years prior, and in fact it was while shooting that film that Zhao first met Brady. Zhao was fascinated by Brady's demeanor and abilities as a trainer, although at the time the two couldn't work out what story to tell, and it wasn't until Brady was injured the following year that their narrative began to fall into place. Zhao returned to Pine Ridge and shot a film that she describes as 65% Brady's life and 35% creative liberties. The result is neither documentary nor fiction, but a uniquely authentic opportunity for a non-actor cast to perform his own mistakes, his own triumphs, his own losses. Brady is surrounded not by performers, but by neighbors, not by sets, but by his neighborhood. Zhao's aim is not to artificially reconstruct Brady's story, but to empower Brady to tell it himself. But Chloe Zhao's approach to storytelling was met with a new kind of challenge in 2020's Nomadland, Zhao's first adaptation of a book, a non-fiction work of the same name by Jessica Bruder, and her first feature film with a professional actor. While Zhao's usual casting tactics apply to the majority of the film's characters, Nomadland's protagonist, Fern, sits as a fictional core to an otherwise true story of the itinerant experience occurring across the Midwest.
And I worked in human resources there for a few years. That was my last full-time job. I did a lot of part-time jobs. I cashiered at the Empire Store. I was a substitute teacher at the school for 5 years.
Didn't the Empire mine shut down and then all of the resident workers had to relocate?
Yeah, about a year ago.
Wow. So when do you need to get back to work?
Now?
Played by the inimitable Frances McDormand. It was actually McDormand and producer Peter Spears who first optioned Bruder's book for the movie, seeking out Zhao to co-develop and direct it. And who better than McDormand to carry Fern into the reality of Nomadland's story? Someone truthful and at once capable of navigating the intimate elements of a life set outside of the mainstream. Famously reclusive, refusing far more interviews than she ever gives, McDormand is an actress existing as far from the spotlight as a successful career in Hollywood will allow. And still, Nomadland was a challenge to McDormand's conventions, as much as working with a professional actor was to Zhao's. Because Zhao wanted to stick as closely to a non-actor's experience as possible, McDormand was asked to share more and align with her character more intimately than usual. Zhao convinced McDormand to get one of her lifelong friends to play her sister for good chemistry, but when Zhao suggested they incorporate McDormand's real-life son and Joel Cohen, her husband, McDormand resisted. In her view, Fern as a character had to diverge from herself somewhere, or else the film would fall into the territory of documentary, or perhaps for McDormand, personal fantasy. So the two worked together to devise Fern as a somewhat alternate version of McDormand's self. Had she pursued a personal dream of hers of leaving Hollywood for the highway, Fern is an emotional proxy for understanding this community. Her personal history is less important. What takes priority is her wayward presence. McDormand worked real hours at odd jobs like the rest of her ensemble and lived out of an RV for months.
All right, let me just say that this is a lot more complicated than I thought.
Oh, it's very, very complicated.
Uh-huh.
It's taken me a long time to patch all the peeling paint on this van. So are you quitting on me?
No, I'm not quitting.
Beyond McDormand and the actor David Strathairn, most of Nomadland's characters are still non-actors that Zhao cast along the way. Fern's visit to the Badlands National Park is accompanied by actual tourists. Swanky, Bob Wells, and Linda May are all real itinerant workers who appear in Jessica Bruder's original reporting. At its core, Zhao's philosophy of filming and casting seems to be one of non-intrusion, favoring small crews, not bulldozing a world with replications of what already exists there. The less your productions disrupt, the more organically an environment's stories can come to life. And in turning her lens on real individuals, on real communities, values, and vulnerabilities, Zhao challenges herself to find ways around the real walls that real people raise. In doing so, she is able to tease out stories of hardship and passion with a deep and alluring emotional honesty, in a way most films can only imitate. And while the nature of Chloe Zhao's later work with Marvel didn't allow her to implement many of her signature story settings or casting methods, hopefully she'll find time to return to the Midwest soon and unearth yet another personal tale, long waiting to be told.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah, folks. It's a very interesting story of shooting with non-actors, as we are all going to do exactly the same. Yeah. Yeah. I think the most important advice that I can give you is that first and foremost, once you have analyze your scripts, give it a clear diagnosis, because also find the purpose of this of your script. Why is that script there? Why is that character doing what he does, and what is the purpose? What is the motivation? Yeah, we also look at the changing mental aspect, or even the emotional being of that character. So we as the crew, the director, your cinematographer, your sound, yeah, you must sit down and analyze all that, so that by the time your actors come on board and you are having non-actors, then you know what you are going to communicate to them. Yeah, and please create a free environment. Yeah, just ease up the tension for your actors, because most actors, most people, they would say they cannot act, and whereas no one is unable to act. Because if you ask someone if they can act, and they say, no, I can't act, I never acted before. But you see that kind of reaction, that facial expression that you see in the facial expression that they give you, trying to convince you that they cannot act, so they're not good enough to execute this kind of role, because they are not actors at all. They've never done before, and so they're trying to convince you that your choice is really not a good one. But if say you are a director and you know what you want, you look at the person's reaction and you say, yeah, but you just acted, because that's exactly what acting is acting is reacting. You know, they're reacting to you asking them to act, and they say, nah, I can't act, without realizing that that is acting. Yeah, so it's knowing what you want as a director. You can get anything out of anyone who you can come across, and you can be able to convince them, and they can see the potential within them, the way you would speak to them. Yeah, because you want the best of the best. But I'm not encouraging to take any Tambo Mandela or Sisulu who comes across and reacts in a funny way and say, yeah, he can act. No, it won't work like that. But you know the character, you know the character traits that you're looking for, so you can work with an actor in that particular moment. You might be able to choose someone who would execute that character the way you want. Yeah, we are now coming to the end of our blocking and staging. I want to end this first part of our lesson today with a bang. Yeah, I'm going to invite or Kubrick, Spielberg, and what's his name? Yeah, I will share their video here. I'm calling for the big guns in the industry. Yeah. Let's see if I can get their video. I just don't want to waste time with these videos now. Let me check if I can get this one. Yeah, I think it's coming. This could be this one. Yeah. It's not very long, but I'm gonna share this one anyways, because it's I think it will be one of the best, and this is the last one, not the last one in this whole lecture, but the last one on the lesson on blocking and staging. Thereafter, we'll go to, we shall move on directing directing in a single camera or a multi-camera? Should I say directing a single camera shoot or a multi-camera shoot, or must I say a shooting with a single camera or shooting with multi-camera, which involves a cinematography? Yeah, let's go for this one. Let's go for this one. And we are done. Very good. Let's see.
When you combine camera placement, movement, and actor blocking, a filmmaker can create an almost infinite number of cinematic combinations. Each shot is an opportunity to tell a complete story with subtext. Yet, many filmmakers default to standard coverage. The result, every movie looks the same and says very little. In this video, we're going to show you how you can stage your scenes to increase their cinematic energy and convey a deeper meaning visually. How, you ask? Through blocking and staging, the unspoken dance between the actors and the camera. The term blocking refers to how characters move through a scene and interact with their environment. Staging is the placement and movement of the camera in relation to blocking. When blocking and staging work together in harmony, it can make the difference between watching a functional scene or a subtext-rich visual story. We're going to analyze 3 scenes from popular directors. Before we jump into our examples, make sure to subscribe below and click the bell icon to stay in the loop. Let's jump in. Our first example is from Steven Spielberg's Minority Report. The scene begins with a close-up shot of a wooden pre-crime ball.
When the precogs declare a victim and a killer, their name is embedded in the grain of wood. Since each piece is unique, the shape and grain is unique. The shape and grain is impossible to forge.
I'm sure you all understand the legalistic drawback to pre-crime methodology.
Here we go again.
Look, I'm not with the ACLU on this, Jeff. But let's not kid ourselves. We are arresting individuals who have broken no law.
But they will. The commission of the crime itself is absolute metaphysics. The precogs see the future, and they're never wrong. When the precogs...
Fletcher explains the logic behind their department's technology, but then Whitware brings up the ethical conundrum that faces the pre-crime initiative. Notice the staging changes.
Here we go again.
Look, I'm not with the ACLU on this, Jeff. But let's not kid ourselves. We are arresting individuals who have broken no law.
But they will. The commission of the crime...
Their physical positions now represent their personal beliefs. Whitware on one side of the room, pre-crime on the other.
But it's not the future if you stop it. Isn't that a fundamental paradox?
When Whitware steals the wind from their sails, in walks our hero, John Anderton.
Yes, it is. You're talking about predetermination, which happens all the time. Why'd you catch that?
Because it was going to fall.
You're certain? Yeah, but it didn't fall. You caught it. The fact that you prevented it from happening doesn't change the fact that it was going to happen.
You ever get any false positives?
When Whitware mentions false positives, we cut. Now on the other side of the line, in a neutral shot behind Fletcher. They're evenly matched. The audience in the middle. This shot visually asks the viewer to make their own determination. Are you with Anderton or Whitware?
Someone intends to kill his boss or his wife, but they never go through with it. How do the precogs tell the difference?
Precogs don't see what you intend to do. Only what you will do.
Then why can't they see rapes? Or assaults or suicides?
Because of the nature of murder.
Anderton then takes a seat, comfortable in his beliefs.
The untimely murder of one human being by another.
Somehow I don't think that was Walt Whitman.
Zara Cinnamon. She developed precogs, designed the system, and pioneered the interface.
Speaking of interfacing, I'd love to say hello.
To Hinneman.
To them.
Cops aren't allowed inside the temple.
Really? You've never been inside?
We keep strict separation so that no one can be accused of Tempering.
So I'll be the first one to go in then.
Maybe you didn't hear me.
If it's a question of authority.
No, there is no question. You don't have any.
I have a warrant in my pocket that says different.
When Whitwer mentions the warrant, Anderton's once comfortable seat becomes compromised. Whitwer now in control of the scene.
Show it to me.
Sure. This investigation of pre-crime and its personnel is being conducted under the direct supervision and express permission from the Attorney General of the United States. I'm here as his representative, which means you're now operating under my supervision. Seems you've been left out of the loop, John.
The body language, shot composition, and dialogue combine to deflate Anderton's power. Spielberg was able to change the meaning behind the blocking through dialogue and body language. This is truly masterful directing. But what about staging a scene with fewer cuts? Let's look at our second example from Clockwork Orange, directed by Stanley Kubrick. Kubrick started his career as a photographer, and you can see this in his shot compositions. Similar to a photograph, Kubrick stages his scenes so a single frame communicates a complete story. His staging has deep meaning. In this scene, the Droogs are positioned in a triangle, with Georgie's legs extended towards Dim. As Alex comes down the stairs, the Droogs look up.
Hi there.
The blunt end of his cane aimed at Dim. Notice the compositional lines created by both the cane, but also the handrail. All eyes are on Alex.
Welly, well. To what do I owe the extreme pleasure of this surprising visit?
All eyes turn to Georgie, which guide our eyes as well.
We got worried.
Then we get our first cut.
There we were, waiting and drinking away at the old knifey Moloko. And you had not turned up.
When Georgie leans in, notice the position of his shadow in the background. There's a little treat aimed at his face. Staging George and Dim in this way tells us where allegiances lie.
And we thought you might have been, like, offended by something or other. So round we come to your abode.
Happy Polly Lodges.
We cut to a new wide shot. The pointed end of the cane aimed at Dim. Notice how the shadows guide our eyes. Kubrick then presents a very obvious moment of intimidation and superiority.
Let's get things nice and sparkling clear. This sarcasm, if I may call it such, does not become you, my little brothers. As I am your Droogan leader, I'm entitled to know what goes on, eh? Now then, Dim, what does that great big horsey gape of a grin portend?
All right, no more picking on Dim, brother. That's part of the new way.
The entire scene is all about testosterone, alpha status, the graffiti on the wall, the jockstraps, the cane. And Kubrick's blocking and camera work support the moment to perfection. But what if you want to stage a scene without cutting at all? Let's look at our third example from Birdman. In this scene, Sam's movement leads the camera to Larry, the costume designer.
He's here.
Okay, thank the Lord and pass the biscuits. I finally have an actor to dress. How have you been, Larry? Better now that you're here. Take a...
When staging your tracking shots, make sure important information is always in view.
You just gonna stand there?
Inaritu uses the mirror to extend our view. Production design can be used to enhance the effectiveness of your direction. Notice that the actors are placed at varying depths in the frame. Larry is seated closest to the camera, Mike in the middle, and Sam's reflection in the very back.
Holy shit. What's happening? Where are your underpants? Under the bed at home, I think.
Inaritu cleverly moves Larry out of view as Leslie enters.
Everything is too small.
You're not kidding.
This gives us space to see Leslie.
That's nice. Forgive him, Larry. Mike's like my 5-year-old son. Neither of them has clean underwear.
Consider what the actions on screen tell us about each of these characters. Mike both admires and critiques his image in the mirror. Sam is on her phone, distracted in the background. And Leslie is focused on her career, but also in a hurry. Each little subtle action paints a very full picture of their individual personalities.
Trousers and shirts and underwear.
Leslie moves towards us,
What are you doing?
I'm waiting on Larry.
complaining about Mike's immaturity and Sam's lingering.
We've got dressed. Wiggins' daughter's hanging around, and I don't need her to walk
Leslie?
in here. No, Mike, you haven't seen her. She's always hanging around, watching everyone, like little Miss Creepy.
Les?
The mirror keeps us constantly aware that Sam is still in the room.
I don't know if it's the drugs that fried her brain or what, but I just don't want her running to her father saying you showed her your junk.
When Mike finally reveals that Sam is, in fact, in the room,
Then we should ask her to leave.
Oh, God, really?
Inaritu gives us a great close-up view of Leslie's reaction. He knew this moment was important, and that Leslie's face gives the scene the biggest payoff.
Sammy?
It's Sam.
Sam. Leslie?
Listen, when I said that, I
Don't
didn't...
worry about it. He's a handful, huh?
Inaritu used intelligent blocking and staging to land in this shot at this moment. They should give this guy an award or something.
Alejandro G.
To recap, we showed you how Spielberg uses blocking and body language to represent a shift in power. We showed you how Kubrick directs the eyes with lines and shapes. And we showed you how Inaritu changes composition during his long takes so that it culminates in a big reaction shot.
Oh, God, really?
What are your favorite examples of blocking? How did the director use it to elevate the material? Tell us in the comments. If you're planning compositions that are beyond standard coverage, it's helpful to use a shot list or storyboard to map it out. Check the description to sign up for Studio Binder. It's free to get started. Remember to subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Click the bell icon for notifications and follow us on our Instagram page. Very well, my brothers and sisters.
Thank you, Pops. Yeah, with this video here, I think we have seen that it's important to go back to our storyboard and reevaluate it in terms of the motivation, what the scene is really about. Also, looking at the storyboard before we go on the shoot, we can look at how we can place our cameras, how we can compose our picture, directing a point of view of a character in the film, also reflecting on the viewer. Because what happens is the camera always serve two roles in the movie. It will serve first and foremost, it is a camera. It will serve as an object because it's a camera. So it serves an objective role. So it's the one that shows you what is happening there. But and on the other hand, secondly, the camera will also serve a subjective role, which gives you a sense of being actually in the action as a viewer. So this is the directors or the cinematographers a technique of bringing the viewer from their seats into the action itself. So it's the camera there which will serve a subjective role, as we have seen in that's the excerpt from the Steven Spielberg. Yeah, and also the lines that directs the concentration of the viewer into the subject, and how we have seen this technique of Irrital's techniques of a single shot showing everything. We have so many movies, even on them that you make magic movies or Zanzibar movies, we have seen a cinematographer or the directors using the mirror to expand the action. Yeah, From there, folks, I'm pretty sure that we are ready going to redo our storyboard, review our scripts, and do a data treatment, and also to do our pre-production properly, so that our production will run at least 90% report free. Yeah. Most of us, when we're doing our projects, what we do is we usually hire out a single camera from our equipment department here at Boston Media House. So yeah, let us look at how we use a single camera technique. How do we shoot a film or a scene using a single camera? And thereafter, we're going to move on to how can we use multi-cameras, and what are the advantages of using a multi-camera technique, or as opposed as to a single camera technique. Yeah, I know that the common one would be like if you're using a multi-camera technique, it's commonly known that it saves time, because you have like your triangle, your one camera taking an establishing shot of, say, if you are shooting like two people, a two shots of people seated or standing and looking at each other, and then you will have camera A here and camera B, and you have your camera C in the middle taking your wide shot or a long shot, and camera A and camera B, you set them at say a medium shot, and there will be the person over the shorter shot, so you can be able to come to intercut. Or if you are using a single camera, you will take an establishing shot, you take this shot and this shot here. There are also advantages and disadvantages of that as well. Okay, but let's start with the single camera shoot and see how it takes us. I'm just gonna go look for this video. I think I have it right here. Where is it? It's not in this one. Let me just one camera. And then let's share this one. Yeah. Now.
Hello and welcome to another tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to shoot a dialogue scene using one camera. It can be any scene that has multiple camera angles but using one camera. A lot of people wonder how it's done. Someone asked me in the comments the other day, so I figured I'd actually do a video. Got a whiteboard here to explain it. It's a bit easier to explain. Basically the tutorial will cover pretty much how to do this.
I don't care what it takes, but you got to turn up when we tell you to turn up. The coach's been on my back about this for the last month. Ryan! Answer me!
Why should I give a shit about you, huh? Or anyone else here?
So as you can see in that scene, the camera changed from character to character. That wasn't done with two cameras, that was done with one single camera. What basically happens is you need your actors to play out the role more than once to get that different angle. So you'll film one side, and you'll get that, then you'll film the other side and you'll get the rest of the scene. So some little tips before we get started on this. Try and get your actors to always do the same thing in every single take. So if they brush their hair like that in one take, make sure they do it in the next take, third take, fourth take, and so on and so forth. Because what can happen is if you're doing a shot where say it's over my shoulder, so you can just see the side of my face, and when the camera changes, my hand's here. What you don't want is the camera changing to the other person. So it's basically the camera's on me and my hand's down here like within a second like that. So make sure your actors do the exact same thing in every single shot if possible. On big budget movies and films and things like that, there's always like a script supervisor, or there's someone hired, basically continuity, someone hired to do that and make sure that everything's the same every time it's shot. You might be surprised, but sometimes a scene that's as short as 30 seconds could take hours to film. That little snippet I just showed you, we took about 6 or 7 hours to film that, and I think the whole thing goes for about a minute and a half. So the reason why is because it's not just because of mistakes. Like, you get mistakes, you got to shoot again and things like that. The main reason why is because you want a variety of shots to choose from. So you might want a wide shot of both people, you might want a mid shot of one character, you might want a close up of their face. So you have to shoot that and reenact the whole scene every single time. Yes, it's awesome to have two cameras, but one, we don't always have the budget, and two, sometimes it's not possible, because if you're say shooting over my shoulder and there was someone standing here, you'd see that camera. So let me just draw up really quickly what the scene or your set will look like while you're doing this. So the red that I'm going to draw here is going to be people. It's going to be bird's eye view. So we've got, there's just the top of someone's head, and let's just say they're sitting like that. I don't know if you can see that, hopefully you can. So I'll try and make it darker, sorry. That'll do. So there's two people and they're having a conversation, like a dialogue. So they're looking at each other pretty much along this line here. And then what we're going to do is show you where the camera would be. And obviously, as I said before, if you have two cameras and you can get away with it, you might have a camera here. God, these markers are horrible. So excuse my bad drawings, but you might have a camera there and a camera there. This will work because this one can shoot their face, while this one can shoot their face. Like that. And when this camera's filming their face, you're not going to see the other camera in the shot. But as I said, we don't always have the luxury of having two cameras, or sometimes if it's more of a shoulder shot back here, you'd see the camera if it was there or something like that. So keep that in mind. So this is just how to shoot using one single camera. So what you do, let's just say we're going to film this person first. So you get our camera in there, and we just quickly draw that. These markers are brand new. Alright, so that's our camera. We're going to shoot this side right here, like that. So we're shooting them. Now what you got to do, you got to go through the whole scene. So the whole dialogue scene. If this person talks, that person talks, the whole scene that you want you need to shoot from there. So what I like to do, set up my camera, get the frame all beautiful, and then also make sure you have your lighting and stuff set up. So let's just say these are, oh my God, you're joking. These are brand new, I'm not joking. No, that works. So let's just say these are lights. So you get everything set up. So you've got your lighting set up, the camera set up, all on that one person. What you don't want to do is one person has their dialogue. You don't want to move the camera for the next sentence or when the next person speaks. You don't want to keep moving the camera. You leave it there, you play out the whole scene. Now, while this is happening, you'll obviously have someone recording the sound. So there's two ways to do this. One of them is that each person wears a little mic, but that's not always the best case. Best case is obviously a boom, so a microphone on a pole, it's a boom mic, and you'll want that mic'd up from, the person might be standing over behind the camera or over here, and they might be miking from up here. And as each person talks, they'll twist the microphone to the person who's talking. So if they're really far apart, it's probably best if the guy using the microphone, so the boom operator, it's probably best if they actually just focus on the person the camera's on, so that the lips sync with the audio properly. The reason I said that thing before about making sure the actors do the same thing in every shot, especially make sure that they say the same thing in every shot, they say the exact line, because sometimes you need to use audio from somewhere else, and if they said something different, it's not going to fit. So that happened to me on a project a while back. We had the audio in the middle, and the boom operator was twisting the mic for whoever was talking. We missed the audio on one of the actors, it wasn't the best, so we tried to use another one of the audio clips from her shot. Unfortunately, she said a different line, so it didn't match up with her mouth, so we had to do what's called ADR, which is when you record it later and sync it up. So it's always best to get it on the day and make it perfect on the day. So all right, so we're shooting this person, they're playing out the whole scene, talking back and forth, the camera stays there, doesn't focus on that person at all. Once you've shot that, and make sure you get heaps of different angles, so close up, mid shot, get all that stuff while the lighting's set up all in the one area. Once you've done that, it's easy, and you've probably already guessed, everything just gets flipped. So now I have the camera, I'll never buy these markers again. So we've got that, camera is now shooting that way, and again we have our lights that way. Same deal, record that side, the whole scene, get every different angle and shot you need for that person. So as I said, you might want a close up, you might want a mid shot, you might want like a wide shot. And what a good thing is to do is always just have an establishing shot that you can use. And you might think I won't use that shot, but you'd be surprised when it comes to editing, you might need something to fill a blank where someone said something and it didn't quite mesh up with, because you need to use better audio, you might want to change to another shot while they said that so you can't see their mouth. So let's just say we recorded this person and the better audio we got was another take, but this was the best take visually. You might want to use the other audio, maybe it doesn't mesh up properly, or maybe they said something different. So you might want to flick to like a two shot, like a wide two shot from back here, where they're both in the shot and you can't really see things like the lips moving so much. So that just about covers it. It's quite an easy concept, but it does make something that should be shot very long, and that's why it is surprising when you see, you know, a shot that might only literally, in a movie or something, there might be a scene that's literally 30 seconds and that could have taken a full day or 2 days or something. So that's the reason why there's mistakes. You know, you'll have to shoot again because of mistakes. There's different angles and all sorts of stuff. Shoot way more than you need, so when you come back to edit, you've got a lot more to work with, because you might find, I really wish we got a shot of this side or that, or he or she said her lines differently. I wish we had some kind of other shot we could have used at the time, or a different reaction. So yeah, if you shoot it a lot of times, you'll get different reactions. You'll be able to choose from them, which is really cool. So, and the same goes for if you're want to shoot a car, I don't know, a car drifting or something, whatever. You'll get the shot from one side. If you don't have two cameras, you'll get the shot from one side. They're going to have to reenact the whole thing, and then you get the shot from the other side, so on and so forth. So that's basically how it works. Little tip in terms of audio: if you're doing a really, really long shot, so it's so far away that you'll see the boom, because obviously a boom has to be pretty close, or the microphone boom has to be pretty close to the person's mouth or head. if it's a really long shot in their head, they've got so much headroom, you'd see the microphone. What you need to do in that instance is either ADR, which is automated dialogue replacement, which is when they record it later and then, you know, they might go into a studio and record it and then they dub it onto the video. The best way to do this, in my opinion, though, as I said before, get as many shots as you can. So if you know you're going to use that wide shot at the start, doesn't matter, still do a close-up and have the boom mic there, get the audio. You might end up using the close-up and you might flick to it and flick back. Even if you don't use the close-up, at least you've got audio that is close-up, so you can do your really wide shot and use that audio. So that's basically how it works. I hope I didn't miss anything out. I hope it all made sense. Sorry about the whiteboard and the markers. I hope you can see that. So when you do this, you can use the best video, basically the best video footage that you got, and you can also use the best audio because you have so many takes. That one scene we did that doesn't even go for that long. I think we've probably got about 5 or 6 takes on this person and 5 or 6 on that person, and then about 2 or 3 wide. So even if they nail it, sometimes it's good for them to just do another one just to get different reactions and try different angles and all sorts of stuff. One quick rule, sorry, I know I was wrapping up the video, but one quick thing. The reason you don't want to move the camera between, so if you record this person, he talks, and then you flip it every time they have a line, you don't want to do that because you might not put the camera back in the same place. And the audience may not notice, but they usually, it's very distracting if the camera's over a bit more or it's tilted or there's a different angle. So that's why you want to shoot everything from one side at all sorts of different, like close up, mid, whatever. Just zoom your camera or move it in and just remember where you were and then go do the other side and do the same thing. It just ensures that you don't have to move the camera every single take. So that's basically how it's done. Sorry this has gone on a bit, but I hope it helped. Please subscribe and let me know if you have any questions below. Please like this video and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. This was very this was a very informative video on a single camera shoots. It's yes, I once did it on in one of our shoot films. Yeah, it's actually it's a daunting task, shooting in with one camera. It's quite, yeah. It's very. It takes a director, your continuity person, and also your slate, yeah, and also your sound as well. It's so because we will be shooting in small groups, so the advice will be all of you guys must wear so many hats. You must wear so many hats so that you can cope with all the challenges. And please, because you'll be shooting, I know you'll be shooting with you'll be shooting with non-actors, people who haven't acted before. Yeah. So please make sure that your actors do not overdo what we call what's it? Too much improvisation. They shouldn't do too much improvisation because it will distract the flow of your especially with the dialogue. It will distract the flow of the dialogue of the dialogue, and it will make it difficult to, as so many people say, we'll fix it in the edit, which is a very difficult thing to do. So the advice is to keep your improvisation to a minimum, so that you won't frustrate you do not frustrate your editor in the end. So everyone must be on the lookout.
I'm sorry.
So that, oh, sorry. Everyone must be on the lookout so that we do not make mistake of shooting an
I'm sorry, sir.
uneditable the shots that will frustrate our editor. Yeah, I just want to share the one last one on shooting with a single camera, so you can get the grip of what is going on here. But the bottom line is, do your storyboard properly. Interrogate your scenes. Every movement, every camera movement must be motivated, and it must have a certain meaning. It must have an impact on the film. So we do not just frame because we know how to frame a wide shot or a single shot. Yeah. So it's this is what we must do. Have I been cut off? No. Okay. Yeah. I see the notification. So just they're joining each other. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. So folks, let me share this one. We are approaching the end of our lesson, but from this single camera, we are going to cross over to the multi-camera. And let me cut off my speech and let's watch this video. Okay.
In this video, I'll show you how to film a scene with one camera. First, why one camera? Traditionally, film was expensive, so you didn't want to waste more film than you had to. Today, it's still rare to use more than one camera because it's hard to light a scene for different angles and still make it look good. You'll see many Hollywood big and medium budget films and TV shows use more than one camera, called a multicam setup. But for most productions, it's still just one camera. The simplest way to shoot a scene is to let the actors act out the entire scene in one go and record all of it from one vantage point. Film directors do this all the time. It's not the most popular way, but it's definitely okay to do it if it works. In this scene from The Shining, the characters are on their way to the Overlook Hotel, and the entire scene plays out in one take with no cuts. The camera is positioned in one place and never moves. The car is moving, but it didn't have to. You can imagine the same conversation if they had parked on the side eating sandwiches. When the camera is in a fixed position, I call it a static camera. Does a static camera help the scene? Let's see. Notice the position of the actors. Jack is closest to the camera and is largest in the frame. The lens is a wide-angle lens, and this is why you get this size difference. Hitchcock said the most important thing should be the biggest in the frame, and this is a subtle but powerful example of it. Not only is Jack the biggest, he's also the nearest to us. Director Stanley Kubrick is telling us Jack is the important one here. Jack Nicholson was already a star by this point, but even if it was a different actor, this would be true. Notice how Wendy is the farthest and smallest, as befitting her personality in the film, and Danny stands up and is between them. He's part of the family and isn't sitting at the back doing his own thing, as most kids tend to do. They start out by discussing something mundane and end up by talking about an event involving cannibalism.
You mean they ate each other, huh?
They had to, in order to survive.
Jack.
So the dialogue plays its part too. As you can see, even with a static camera, you still have things you can do to make a scene interesting. Now let's take another scene from The Shining where the camera moves without cuts. I picked The Shining because the camera movements are relatively simple to understand, though hard enough to execute. This is the hotel tour scene, and it's the first time we see the enormity and magnificence of the interiors of the Overlook Hotel. It starts with a tracking shot where the camera is moving parallel to the actors at the same speed. It stops when they stop, which is a camera technique as old as cinema. Then the camera moves in while Dick approaches the group. Notice how the exact same thing happens again as Danny approaches. The camera tracks sideways and then moves in closer. The actors are all standing still. It's almost like a tableau, a stage play, but with important differences. First of all, the first time the scene plays out, we see the Overlook Hotel along with the characters. By placing them in a long shot, we get the sense of scale. The ballroom is really big, with the tall ceiling and great depth. We see the floor and the ceiling, again because of the wide-angle lens used. We take in the room and we appreciate the character's sense of awe. The tracking reveals more of the ballroom as we move forward, so it maintains our interest. Notice Jack here. As he approaches the bar, he slows down. Nobody will catch this, but something keeps him away from it, and he ends up at the extreme left. On the other hand, Wendy's among the other staff. She's taking in everything that's happening, but Jack is sort of removed. As Dick approaches, the camera dollies in. This is a technique to eliminate more of the background and forces the audience to focus on the characters. Also notice how Jack's got his hands in his pockets. He's in a defensive posture. He shakes hands with Dick, but the hands go back into the pockets. Sounds weird, I know. When Danny arrives, the tracking is quicker than the previous shot, and when the camera moves in, notice Wendy calls Danny to her, and he doesn't stop with Jack. At this point in the story, you're not supposed to know what's going to happen, so all these things are subtle. The director hopes it builds up as the movie goes on. The third way to shoot a scene is to film parts of the scene from different angles. To do this with one camera, it means you'll let the actors act out only parts of the scene while you record it. Then you change the camera position and film the next part, and so on. You piece together the scene in editing. Let's take a scene that happens a bit later, as Dick shows Wendy and Danny around the kitchen. Notice how the position mirrors the position in the car earlier, but this time Wendy is prominent here. She's not a pushover, as we'll find out later. They walk through the kitchen and go into two storage rooms. The first is the cold storage. Here the blocking of the scene is similar to the second example. Moving camera, dollying in, while the actors stand in place. It seems like it's not very interesting, but Kubrick is just building up to something. The second room they enter is the dry food area. Notice the differences. Earlier, Dick was on the left. Danny was with Wendy. Now, Dick is on the right and Danny is on his own. And notice the camera doesn't move forward here. Without us knowing, we instinctively feel something is different about this room. The camera tracks sideways while they explore more of the storage area. Notice how Danny stays back, mirroring Jack earlier. It's like a boundary being crossed. At this point, as a director, you ask yourself, why would I want to break the scene into smaller parts? We cut to a mid-shot of Danny. The director cuts after a string of uncut scenes to break our reverie, for one. Second, we wouldn't have been able to see Danny's reaction unless we saw it closer. So Kubrick thought it important to cut here. In this mid-shot, the camera zooms into a close-up to highlight Danny's shock. The zooming in is Kubrick style. Some directors like Spielberg will move the camera closer. Others won't move the camera at all. At this point, the audience wants to know, why is Danny frozen here? What's the cause? To answer this natural question, Kubrick gives us another cut. We cut to Dick, who's talking to Wendy. If Kubrick had cut back to the wide shot, we wouldn't see what's coming next. Dick looks back at Danny and we get a voiceover.
How'd you like some ice cream, Doc?
They can talk telepathically. Danny gets it. We know that because Kubrick cuts back to him and we feel he has understood the message. To show us Wendy doesn't observe this, Kubrick goes back to the wide shot as it tracks back. Interesting how the camera movement and actor blocking feel so simple, but it's still complex. That's Stanley Kubrick. Most directors never approach this level of understanding. He sets us up through long, uncut scenes, and then we get two quick shot and reverse shot, and it makes it more powerful. If the entire scene were shot with such angles, would these two stand out or take on an importance they have here? Of course not. To shoot a scene from multiple angles with one camera, you must first ensure there's a reason for it. Once you've done that, you must find the least number of shots it will take to accomplish this. You shouldn't just go about and shoot the scene from a million angles. It takes a lot of time and money to shoot all the extra shots, and the actors get numb. Experienced actors can take it, but inexperienced actors will simply burn out, as will the rest of your crew and your bank account. Some directors make their actors repeat the entire scene in every take. Some only ask actors to do pieces. It depends on what the actors are doing or saying and what their emotional intensity is at that point. There's no formula for it. Some directors are happy with 4 takes. Other directors like Kubrick and James Cameron make their actors do 40 takes. Whatever works. The audio is recorded as many times. The lighting changes slightly for each shot, and the continuity of action is to be maintained so they all cut together. I go over the creating, staging, blocking, rehearsing, and shooting of dialogue scenes in great detail in my ultimate guide to shooting dialogue scenes. I'll link to it below. If you like this video, please hit like and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell you'll see on the right, because YouTube will remind you it's time to get your mind blown again when I post my next video.
Yeah, here we go, folks. Yeah, this second video just sums it up. I've already said some things that they touched on the video, and yeah, motivation. Don't just put your camera in there and set your lens without any motive, without any intention. Yeah, everything must, remember, everything that you do, every move, yeah, all the departments, we are telling the same story. We are telling one story. So whatever we do, on lighting, on cinematography, on editing, directing, sound, production design, we are telling one story. So everything must complement each other. Yeah, I'm just gonna go quickly to our multi-camera things so we can see. Let me check out if we have a multi-camera. Yeah. I'm just gonna share with this one quickly. Yeah, before we run out of time. Yeah, we'll have a little time, but yeah, we can. Yeah, let's see. Let's share this one. Now we're moving from a single camera to a multi-camera shoot. This is a very interesting one and very
Hey gang, Chase here, and today we're going to discuss shooting with multiple cameras. We'll be sharing some tips and techniques that can be applied to a variety of multicam styles to ensure that your next shoot is a success. One of the earliest steps for any shoot is choosing the right camera. While that could be a topic unto itself, here are a couple things to keep in mind. Try to use the exact same cameras if possible. Not only will your footage's overall look match from camera to camera, but it will also make it easier on your crew because they're all working with the same gear. Just be sure to match white balance, frame rate, ISO, shutter speed, and the picture profile on each. Now, in the event you're using 2 different cameras on your shoots, there are some steps you can take to make things easier for matching in post. Try to use the same brand of camera. There is a unique look and color science from each camera manufacturer, and cameras with different manufacturers tend to have drastically different looks, making matching them up difficult. If you have no other option than to shoot with 2 totally different cameras, shooting in a log profile or another kind of flat profile can help make shots easier to match up later. Another potential issue when using 2 different cameras may be a difference in resolution. Say camera A can shoot 1080p, but camera B only shoots 720p. You're now forced to down-res camera A to 720 and output your entire project in that resolution, unless you chose to upscale that smaller image, which of course leads to a loss of quality. Unless your camera lenses are fixed, you'll need to decide what lenses to shoot on as well. Much like cameras, different lenses tend to have varying looks, so try to get a matching set if possible. Same brand, same level of quality. Remember to match each lens's exposure. Notice that I didn't say to shoot at an identical f-stop, because while shooting at the same stop from camera to camera is the easiest way of ensuring matching exposures, there are also times when you may not want that. If you're shooting your wide at a 5.6, but find you'd like a shallower depth of field on your close-up, you could add an ND filter and open that up to a 2.8. That way, your effective exposure is still a 5.6, but you have the depth of field of a 2.8. There are a variety of ways to ensure that your camera stays synced for your shoot. The first you could use is timecode. This will allow your editor to quickly and easily sync by timecode in post. Another method for syncing is known as genlock. You're essentially feeding a signal from multiple cameras into a device, most often a video switcher, that syncs them all together. The simplest method of syncing both audio and video is with a slate. Roll your audio, followed by your video. Someone on set typically reads the information on a slate first, stating the scene, shot, and take, and then claps the sticks together, creating an audio-visual cue for the editor to sync to. Don't have a slate? A hand clap can work just as well. Finally, if on-site syncing is forgotten or just too difficult to accomplish at the time, syncing softwares such as Pluralize can be used in post. This analyzes all of the camera's audio waveforms for similarities and uses those similarities to sync all the clips together. Now let's look at how you might plan your coverage for a documentary or ENG style interview. For this scenario, let's assume you're shooting with two cameras. In shoots of this nature, it's most common to have camera A locked off in a talking head. Framing this establishing shot varies depending on the DP's taste, of course, but typically it frames wide enough to include the subject's head and shoulders and some environment. The B camera is then free to get close-ups of the subject speaking for a nice cutaway, or to wander, capturing intimate details such as body language. When filming live events, the more cameras you can employ to cover the action, the safer you'll be. Consider a concert. Generally, there are cameras that cover 360 degrees of the action from very wide to very tight angles. In situations like this, where the action can be unpredictable, it's always just best to cover all those bases and be prepared for anything.
But trip and fall when we walk, we talk for miles.
In narrative filmmaking, however, an experienced director usually has an idea of exactly how they'd like a scene to play out, so they shoot only the coverage necessary to execute that vision. In situations like this, you really only need one camera. However, there are times when shooting narratives with only one camera is impractical. For instance, scenes with stunts and large-scale action would be very difficult, not to mention very exhausting to constantly shoot, reset, and reshoot from different angles. Capturing multiple angles at once can also help prevent your talent from becoming worn out from doing take after take after take. Imagine a scene where the coverage you've planned consists of a wide shot, and a two shot, and an over the shoulder, a medium shot, a close-up, and an extreme close-up. You might think that's only 6 shots, but from an actor's point of view, that's 6 performances that they have to give and have to be spot on for. That's assuming you only need one take for each. With coverage like that, by the time you reach the close-up, your talent might have already given their best performance.
Nothing, I looked at the camera.
When editing multiple cameras, there is a function in most nonlinear editing systems called multicam sequencing. Essentially, what this does is it marries all of your camera angles into a single sequence and into a single viewer window, allowing you to preview those multiple clips simultaneously. Much like live switching, only it isn't live. You can make a cut at the desired point, click the camera you like, and you're moving forward, easy as that. This can be a major time saver because instead of viewing each angle one by one and identifying the moments that you'd like to use, you can just compare them all at once. As a workflow, it's simply more efficient. And there you have it. Hopefully these tips will make your multicam shoot less of a chore and allow you to spend more time focusing on the creativity of your piece.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&A.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, this was a very one of our a very informative multi-camera shoot. You see the basic of a multi-camera shoot is you don't just take different mix of cameras or different brands. Yeah, so you just need to, you must have the same brand, such as like the same white balance and stuff like that, and all the f-stop or the exposure. Yeah, but you might want to have maybe on the one shot that maybe it will be on a wide angle. It might have somewhat different have the f-stop, because maybe looking at the shooting distance scale of the three cameras and the angle that they are shooting in. Yeah, also with the lighting, the more cameras you have, the more lighting you would need as well, because you might find that one camera which you use as a key light to one camera character, it might fall as a fill light for the other and a backlight for the next. So you have to be very careful, and you use your lighting technique sparingly. That also goes back to blocking. If you are going to use the multi-camera, how are you going to block that? And how are you going to synchronize the camera movement and the character movement when it comes to the actual staging? Yeah, that's dance. How are you going to choreograph that and to make it seamlessly smooth and complement each other? Okay, let me try and get another one that we can share quickly. We still have another one that you can share, and yeah, and see how do we link up or make our multi-camera shoots as a cinematographer. How do we do that? Cinematographer's point of view. There we go, folks. Let's start this one quickly. I think this will do us that justice in order to get the feel of how we're gonna shoot our film. The choice is ours. It's up to you how you want to do with single camera or multi-camera.
This episode of Film Riot is brought to you by Domain.com. Today on Film Riot, we're talking multicam shoots and cinematography with the very talented Ryan Booth. Welcome to Film Riot, the show that takes the mystery out of the effects and techniques that goes into your favorite Hollywood films. I'm your host, Ryan Conley, and before we get into it, happy Turkey Day to all who celebrate, and a little reminder, tomorrow is Black Friday, and our Triune store is jumping all up on that. Almost all of our digital assets, like our gun sounds, fight sounds, and music pack, are going to be 50% off all day long, half off all day long, and we are going to be doing flash sales on things throughout the day, so follow the Trident Store Twitter right here so you can catch some of the crazy sales, like 75% off, that we'll be doing at random, and we'll be doing the same on Cyber Monday, which is this coming Monday, December 1st, so there's your reminder. But today is going to be a little bit different, as we have a great interview with Ryan Booth. For you guys who don't know who Booth is, he is a director and cinematographer based in Houston. He's a creator and director of the music series Serial Box and has worked on a bunch of music videos, short films, and a feature called This Is Where We Live. Beyond being a crazy talented filmmaker, he's also someone who moves between budgets, so he's no stranger to big projects with larger crews and passion projects with skeleton crews and no money. And more than almost anyone else I've seen, Ryan can make $100 $100 look like $100,000. So I've been wanting to sit down and chat with him for a while. So a few weeks back, I headed over to Houston to watch Ryan shoot a session with Noah Gunnarsson for his Serial Box TV pilot, and had the chance to sit down with him after that to chat a little bit about Serial Box, filmmaking in general, and so on. So enjoy the interview.
Logo. Serial Box, we started a few years ago, and it's basically a live one-take music performance project where we would invite bands in. We'd have 5 or 6 cameras, gear you'd find on a movie set, audio equipment you'd find in a recording studio, and we would do these sessions basically where we'd have bands play a more acoustic version of one of their songs, and we would multi-track it and multicam capture it and create these kind of relatively elaborate performance videos. Kind of as a larger concept, we've kind of recently started doing truly live streams of some of our sessions. And then that has kind of led us into really wanting to tell a longer form version of the Serial Box story, so that it's not just the performance, but that we can do interviews and documentary segments with bands and kind of change up the way we do one takes, and that kind of by combining all those things together, we realized like we have the makings of a TV show, basically. And so that's what kind of Serial Box has been pushing towards over the last couple years of the project. My general rule for Serial Box is that we have 1 more camera than band members. That generally means 4 to 6 cameras at any given time. The kind of cameras that we use don't matter. The thing that matters the most is the number of them, and ideally the number of them that are matched.
That due tonight.
Psst. Use Quillbot Premium.
Premium?
Quill up to 3 pages, 10,000 characters at once, with a faster processing speed to get more done in less time.
Where has this been all my life? Thank you, Quillbot!
The rest of the day is yours. Save your time. Get started with Quillbot today.
Forms and surveys like this get responses like that. With Typeform, you can ask less like a form and more like yourself. Give your forms and surveys a personal touch with Typeform.
So my general rule is if you have mixed cameras, we try and put similar cameras on similar kinds of shots. So if I have 3 FS100s and 2 5Ds, then I'll make sure that my 2 close-up cameras are 5Ds and all the rest of them are FS100s, so that our close-up shots feel the same and our wide shots feel the same, and that kind of tricks your brain into feeling like it's all one camera. The main concern with any camera is what is the dynamic range, and how dark can I shoot it? Because I tend to like to shoot pretty dark, and so with the 5D, we just had to make sure that our dynamic range was very compressed, maybe 8, 9 stops of light between the darkest places and the brightest places. And so now we're shooting primarily with Canon cinema cameras. Yesterday we had 5 C300s and 1 C100. And so with those, we've been using them long enough now that we kind of know we've got a little bit more latitude and our lighting will reflect that. But we still want it to have a very distinct look. It's just how much wiggle room do I have in terms of shadow detail and highlight detail. I got into filmmaking on the kind of riding the 5D wave. Prior to the 5D coming out, I was a photographer, and then prior to that, I was an audio engineer. And so I hadn't quite landed on what I was wanting to do. And the 5D came out, and my first call was to friends of mine that shot video, because I got asked, like, you know, you have the camera, people are like, oh, you do photography, can you do video too? And one of my early mentors kind of said from the beginning, if someone asks you if you know how to do something, the answer is always yes, and then you use the time between saying yes and when you have to do it to figure out how to do it. And so I said yes to a video project not knowing how to shoot video. And so my first call was to a handful of friends of mine that did shoot video, and I got everybody together. I just happened to know musicians, so I said I can bring some musicians in. I actually know how to engineer as well, so I'll bring like a little small recording set in. We can just have the musicians play. It was literally a, can I get a bunch of people together that can kind of jumpstart my like education in filmmaking? And the reason that I asked musicians and the reason we recorded them is because from the beginning I knew I'm asking people to give me something, which, whether that be time, knowledge, their attention, honestly. I wanted everyone to be able to walk away from that experience with something. So if the musicians are going to be sitting there for a couple hours while we're lighting and, you know, working on camera angles, then like, let's record something for them so that when they leave, they've got like this little recording or whatever. If you have something you want to accomplish and you're asking people to do it for low cost, you are the person who should be giving the most. People should know that like no one will work harder than you will, and that no one will want this thing to succeed more than you will, and that end of the day, like, if there's a burden to be carried, it is your job to carry that burden. It is much easier to pull off a music video than it is to pull off a cereal box in the kind of upfront preparation time. On the post-production side, way harder to make a music video than it is to make a cereal box. For the Owl City music video, it's about coming up with the concept, basically. And for that song, which is such a highly narrative-driven song, the lyrics are so specific that you have to have a general action happening, because the specificity of the song will be kind of imposed upon whatever you show them. I wanted to have a loose action that kind of served as the foil for the lyrics, basically, that like them, you know, it's a girl like digging in the ground. It's not that big of a deal. But then when on top of it, he's saying, you know, my dad left me when I was a kid and my life is terrible, and like kind of that coming to grasp with the kind of seriousness of the situation with her dad or whatever, like then her digging in the ground like has a whole other meaning. The first thing I ask when I walk on set, and the actors there and the directors there, is here's what they're gonna say, but what are they gonna do? And that's blocking. Like where are the actors gonna be in this scene, and relative to that, then where am I gonna be in this scene and how is it gonna play out? Some directors say, I don't really care, like wherever the actor kind of feels like he needs to go. So a lot of times when that happens, there's pretty significant amount of rehearsal that happens, at which point I don't take a camera in, I just sit and watch them kind of work their way through the scene. And then the second thing I do is I look where the light is kind of already falling in the room, and I'll make a few immediate suggestions. Hey man, if it's not super important that you're standing over here when that happens, can you stand over here? Because that switching from one side to the other of a room literally may do 75% of the lighting for you. When you start out in filmmaking, which is in fact the ultimate team sport, filmmaking is something that to truly accomplish something awesome is impossible to do by yourself. And so the thing that you have to do is be able to convey your idea to other people. That is the most important thing in filmmaking. Whether you're like a DP, it doesn't matter if you're an actor, director, if you're like a gaffer. Like, you have to be able to say, this is what I'm trying to accomplish in such a way that you motivate the other people who are the ones who can help you accomplish that you can convey that vision to the point that everyone is moving towards the same end goal. And I think it is really difficult because when you start out in filmmaking, a lot of times you are working by yourself. And that can never be the goal, like that, because you won't accomplish anything great if you're doing everything by yourself. It's just not possible. Like, and that's kind of like a hard thing to realize, but it's just true. So then the friction or the difficulty as you kind of move forward in filmmaking is when you get in a situation in which you have to convey your ideas. And I think for a director, that The most difficult transition point is when they start working with a DP, because they now have to convey their ideas to a very key collaborator who can take those ideas in a very different direction. I was on a shoot in which a director wanted foreground element in the shot, and it did not make any sense at all. And I couldn't understand, like, why do you want the foreground element? It's not like, I mean, if you want me to shoot like through block stuff, then that's fine. That's totally fine. I don't understand why you want it. And at the end of the day, he didn't know why he wanted it either, but he was just like, just do it. And that is a very toxic relationship between a director and a DP. There should not be a, I'm the boss, just do it. If you have to say that, you lost a long time ago. If you're just starting out as a filmmaker, literally the hardest part for anyone is, on any level, is the starting, literally getting started. The first thing you ever shoot, the first thing you ever write, the first thing you ever are a part of, that you're like, this is my idea and I want to do it. I think the first step is the hardest part. And so a lot of times why people say write what you know or something like that is because that is the most successful way to start. For me, I came from a music background, I came from a photography background. I mean, Serial Box is my write what you know moment, basically. And so I feel like for guys who are just starting out and for girls who are just starting out, that what are the things that you know more about? What are the things that you are most passionate, most interested in that someone else may not know, that someone may not have experience with? And I think it's really easy to pass right over it, you know, and go like, I want to shoot Interstellar. My kid brother, like, who is like an incredible basketball player, like is gonna be on a state basketball team this year. That's interesting to me. That's interesting. Like, what you have access to him in this hypothetical situation, like at 4 o'clock in the morning. If you're interested in documentary production, like, you got a great starting place. Start right there. Start right there with this thing that you have access to. Because it is such an uphill battle to make a film of any kind, whether that be a documentary, a narrative, a music video. It could be 60 seconds long. It's so hard to make them that I think that kind of like needing some help right out of the gate, you know, as you start out, a lot of that, I just think it's literally, whatever that thing is for whoever's watching this, is probably right under your nose. It's there, the building blocks and the starting things that you need are right in front of you. It's just a matter of kind of identifying and then making the first step.
Domain.com is the place to go if you're trying to get yourself a website to put on the internets, because that's where websites go. They got the...
Yeah, folks. Yeah, I think let's just end it right there. Let's just end it right there. We have just learned a lot from what the gentleman has just given us. Though he's not in the business of making films, but he's doing music videos. But in essence, music videos are also storytelling. You have to, you don't just check out your camera gear, some gear, and go out there and say, okay, guys, now 1, 2, 3 beats that, and then you shoot. You don't do that. You also prepare, like you would know, you would do on when you are preparing for your cinematographic film, like your narrative film, or even your documentary. If anything that's audiovisual material, you have to prepare. You must prepare before you go out there and shoot, because you don't want to come up with something that's crap. That's something that's not pleasant to watch or even listen to, because even the sound is very much important. That's why we also, when we're going for the shoot, we must also do our technical recce on the location, see whether the sound will be pleasant to capture, and also what type of microphones we're going to use, and if we would need a lavalier, we need a raffle mic, or how do I a mic, or dynamics. It depends on the situation that we encounter there, or perhaps we're just gonna go out there on location, do our shoots, and then go back to the studio and do our ADR, and then like fix it in the edits, as most people used to say. Yeah. Now, all that has been said, and we have watched all the movies. We know how to use the multi-camera shoots, single camera shoots, and now we can differentiate between blocking and staging, and how to put all that together. Now, for our film to succeed and make things smoother, what do? There's dialogue in our films. Actors used to fluff their lines. Actors, they improvise. They mumble their lines. They forget their lines. Yeah, some professional actors can just cut in and give them a cue, and then they can pick up. Yeah, we have so many takes, dialogues get interrupted, and all the stuff like that. And we do our acting and differently. Our tone of voice changes every now and then. You get interrupted and stuff like that. How do we exactly shoot dialogue that can be edited smoothly, wrinkle-free, seamlessly, and it should be pleasing in the ears of the audience, and actually makes sense, and do not give our editor some headache. Yeah, let's just go back and have a look at what we have on shooting dialogue. What we have on shooting dialogue. Yes. First up, we look at the tips. What tips do we have on shooting dialogues? Let me just share this one. We are actually coming towards the end of our lecture today, but dialogue, very crucial. It gives us information and takes the story forward. But also, we need to be careful that we don't rely too much on dialogue, and because there are students or filmmakers who tend to give us stories that are too witty, such that we get bored. Yeah, on soapies, yeah, we can accept the dialogue to be, to be lengthy. Yeah, let me just say that. Yeah, but on some genres, we have to keep dialogue to a minimum. Yeah, how do we add dialogue? How do we shoot dialogue? How do we shoot dialogue? It is still sharing. I can see.
There are loads of other things that we could go into, including pacing the scene, the script, or the editing, but we're going to be focusing on the fundamentals of filming in this episode.
If you want to know more about how to get your pacing right and editing, then there's a great tutorial by Film Riot, or if you want to know how to do this in Hit Film Express, check out this tutorial.
Tip 1. Use the 180-degree rule.
This one's really important because it allows the viewer to understand the context of the scene and what's going on, so they don't get confused. Imagine you've got your two actors, and they're looking at each other. This line, where they're looking, is your action line. Everything in front of that is your 180 degrees. So once you've placed your camera on that side of the action line, you can't swap it to be behind. But you can have a camera over here, you can have a camera over here, and you can have a camera where this one is here. Tip number 2, camera angles.
There are typical camera angles for a
well-constructed dialogue piece. As you get more confident, you'll be able to do more things with this, but the important part is to remember to get your standard safety shots done and ready for you to use. The first shot you'll need is an establishing shot. It looks like this.
I still want to share this video, but I'm getting a message. Yes, I'm crazy message. I think I'm just gonna start all over again and share this video here because it just instructing me to remove it. Okay, let me just share it again. Let me share it again. I'll be okay.
Hi, I'm Josh.
And I'm Kirsty.
Today we're going to be talking about the best way to film a dialogue scene.
There are loads of other things that we could go into, including pacing the scene, the script, or the editing, but we're going to be focusing on the fundamentals of filming in this episode.
If you want to know more about how to get your pacing right and editing, then there's a great tutorial by Film Riot, or if you want to know how to do this in Hit Film Express, check out this tutorial.
Tip 1. Use the 180-degree rule.
This one's really important because it allows the viewer to understand the context of the scene and what's going on so they don't get confused. Imagine you've got your two actors and they're looking at each other. This line where they're looking is your action line. Everything in front of that is your 180 degrees. So once you've placed your camera on that side of the action line, you can't swap it to be behind. But you can have a camera over here, you can have a camera over here, and you can have a camera where this one is here. Tip number 2, camera angles.
There are typical camera angles for a well-constructed dialogue piece. As you get more confident, you'll be able to do more things with this, but the important part is to remember to get your standard safety shots done and ready for you to use. The first shot you'll need is an establishing shot. It looks like this. It's a wider shot than normal. It has both of your characters in it, so you have an idea of how they're positioned in relation to one another, and you get the context of the scene. You'll also need an over-the-shoulder camera shot. These are going to need to be exactly the same. You're going to need to have one for each character, and they're going to need to mirror each other. These are the shots that you're going to use to cut between when your characters are chatting. Of course, the standard rules apply here. If you have a character on the right of the shot, they need to be looking to the left. If you have a character on the left, they need to look to the right. This is very basic, but it'll save you a lot of confusion. Tip number 3, how to compose your shots.
You can use the rule of thirds to help you lay out these shots. It makes things quite simple. Your camera may even have an overlay to help you with this. So in the case of me and Kirsty here, I'm about a third of the way over the shot, and so is Kirsty. If we were to switch to an over-the-shoulder shot, again we can line up the characters on these third divides. However, you may want to give more of the shot space to the character you're focusing on rather than the back of the passive character in the foreground. Using this rule will help you keep things nice and balanced.
To make sure that you don't confuse the viewer, you want your over-the-shoulder camera shots to look very similar. You want to use the same lens and shoot from the same distance. Otherwise, you run the risk of your shots looking like they're from 2 different movies. You can shoot some more advanced shots, but it's really important to get those safety shots first so that you've got the flexibility to edit with. Tip number 4, filming with 1 or 2 cameras.
When it comes to indie filmmaking, most stuff is going to be shot with one camera. Having 2 cameras and 2 times the lenses, it just gets really expensive. So if you've only got 1 camera, don't worry about it.
It can be harder and it can be more time consuming to have 2 cameras, but it'll make things easier for your actors and it'll save you time in post. Tip 5, don't take shortcuts.
It really can be tempting that when you're doing those over-the-shoulder shots to send the actor who's not the focus of the shot, who maybe isn't even in the shot, off to have a bag of crisps. Don't do it. The other actor is going to need that actor there. They need to know where their eye line is. They need to be able to play off the emotions and reactions of that person. They need to hear the lines read back to them. Keep them both there when you're shooting and you'll get a more realistic result.
So that's it. That's our quick tips for filming dialogue. Did you enjoy the episode? If you did, hit us up on Twitter or you can leave a comment below.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, or subscribe. Yeah. I am needing to share the last video with you before we wrap up. We are still on how to shoot dialogue, so we can get a smooth edit. Yeah, I'm just gonna look for another video on how to shoot dialogue on a scene, and it's really let's see. I think I've just lost this video here. And it's a very, very short video. I'm looking for it. Just missed it. I just maybe oh, where's my video? I think I just lost it. I've just lost it. There it is. Oh my goodness. Go to my list here. Not list. Can access my list. That's it. Oh. Computer. Yeah, I think I found it. This is how to write a dialogue. And it's coming, taking a little bit slow, eh? Yeah, but this is it.
Film Riot. Today we're talking about
Yeah, correct. Let's share it because it's taking us out to the end of our lecture today. I say.
Welcome to Film Riot. Today we're talking about dialogue scenes, from the simple to the complex, looking at style and even editing, which is thanks to today's sponsor, Filmora, a video editor for all creators. It's really impressive software, but we'll get to that later. Dialogue is one of the many tools you have to convey character and story, but your choice in how you stage that dialogue could elevate it or crush, and there are plenty of ways to stage a dialogue scene. Some of the most obvious and common being sit-downs, like the characters at a table or in a car, with table scenes being known to be some of the most difficult to make interesting, especially if you have a lot of characters around that table. I've heard some friends talk about having to spend an entire day on one table scene due to all the coverage needed for when there's a lot of characters. Depending on how the scene goes, you may end up needing multiple angles on each character depending on who they're talking to at any given time. Of course, getting that proper perspective for each of those interactions. Or you could go insanely simplistic and different with a scene like this from What Lies Beneath.
So how long have you been up
Somebody
here
had to do
for?
it for a job.
Well, Norman,
Do you remember
up here,
Bo
and his father
Flynn, the
worked
head of
here.
cardio over at the hospital? They
You're not
just
gonna
sacked
believe
him.
this.
No
I
kidding.
just dropped her off.
He got involved some stalking incident with an intern, some girl.
I've always loved that scene for its simplicity and coverage, but the complexity and realism in the interactions. There are two conversations happening at once, crossing over each other, which is how a dinner like this goes in real life. So another unique and specific choice made by the director. Some of my favorite table scenes come from David Fincher, specifically in Seven. With his pacing and choice of coverage, it charges the scene with incredible interest and energy. And of course, where you place the camera, as with any scene, is incredibly important. Understanding the moment and what each line means and what the scene as a whole means will help guide you to evolve your coverage as the scene goes on. A great scene to look at for an extreme of this point would be Mission Impossible. When Ethan first meets Kittredge, we start with a master that lays out our setting, since this does play a role later. Then we get some basic medium shots on the characters while the conversation is pretty straightforward. But then, the moment our scene shifts, Ethan realizes Kittredge is lying. flying, we get this extreme jump. A lower angle, he's powerful, the frame is off the horizon on a Dutch angle, showing us things are off, and we are now in a close-up, raising the intensity in just one cut. It would have been incredibly odd to start the scene with a frame like this. De Palma holds it and plays that card the second he wants to shift the scene, using this choice along with the other tools at his disposal to play with your emotions.
I don't quite follow you.
Let's see if you can follow me around the room.
Which a mistake that I've made plenty of times, and one that I've seen others make as well, is using a close-up too early. A close-up is a powerful tool, but used too early or too often in a scene can dull its effect. A less extreme example of knowing exactly when to use that tool is from one of my favorite scenes ever filmed, and that is the opening of Inglourious Basterds. Tarantino is a master at dialogue scenes, and here he covers almost the entire scene in wider shots, mostly mediums or a little bit wider, until we reach the moment that Landa gets to his point. The moment things change, and he basically tells the man that he knows he's hiding people under the floorboards. At that moment, Tarantino zooms us into a close-up of our characters as the entire dynamic shifts. It really is a brilliant scene, and if you haven't seen that film, just stop watching this and go watch that.
Don't do that. I mean, finish this first, and then go watch that.
We do want him to watch the show.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, finish this and then watch that. But watch this first and then that right after. But of course, with sit-downs, you also have plenty of other things like cars, planes, and other vehicles, all with their own challenges. But then you have the opposite with walk and talks, where characters move through the scene while we get our dialogue. This definitely can add energy to the scene, maybe even misdirection. You can also use the action of what they move through to enhance the tone. I love how my favorite director handles dialogue and just scenes in general, and literally everything else. And of course, that's Spielberg. And how he blocks the scene is just a constant masterclass. And the way that he lets dialogue play through movement and in long shots is so immersive and invisible. It's often not until repeat viewings or when I'm analyzing one of his films that I catch how long he will hold on a shot. Jaws is a great example of that. He lets the dialogue unfold in long takes, adding movement within the blocking to energize and add a very specific tone of chaos or anxiety. Specifically, one of my favorite shots using this is from Raiders of the Lost Ark when Brody comes to tell Indy that they got the job. It's all done in one shot, but it moves fluidly and confidently through the scene, getting all of its coverage without ever cutting, and it's something that Spielberg does constantly and just brilliantly. Then you have dialogue scenes where characters aren't even in the same space, whether that's on the phone, through some kind of intercom system, or a power of some kind. This grants new challenges and advantages. But all the same rules still apply here with things that you can do to add story to the visual. Take, for instance, my own short film, Tell. During an intense conversation over the phone, I had the characters facing the same way until the moment my one character turns against the other. They are visually now at odds in a very subtle way until Taylor, played by Todd Bruno, says something that traps the other character in a moment where he almost reconsiders and turns back to match directions again. So even in the simplest ways, there are things that you can do to try to push the core of your scene to capitalize on the tone and emotion that you want your audience to feel. And this includes perspective. Like in my short film, Tell, we're jumping between both characters' perspective on the phone, but I could have chosen to stick with just one side of that conversation and planted our feet firmly in one perspective instead, which would lock your audience into that one experience alone. Then, of course, you have pace. Understanding your tone and pace is key in all aspects of filmmaking, and certainly key within your characters' interactions. And pace isn't just about editing. You can, of course, manipulate that heavily in post, but you really want to feel that while shooting, which will set you up for the most success when it comes to post. Which, speaking of, let's now take a look at a couple of tips when editing dialogue. For that, we're going to look at this moment we shot for our sketch from the Shazam Effect episode, which you can find a link for that in the notes below. But I'm cutting this inside of Filmora 9, and like I said in the opening of the episode, this software is really impressive. I've been meaning to try it out for a while, as a lot of you have been telling me a lot about it, but this was the first time that I toyed around with it, and I was shocked at how intuitive it is. They did an excellent job at making it feel very familiar while still being pretty unique. I haven't had any issues finding my way around or doing the things that I need to do. Of course, you have all the features that you'd expect, like multiple video tracks, but they also have very solid color correction and grading capabilities, stabilization, and keying built right into the software itself. Then, if you look up here, we have a few great selections. If we go into audio, we have some music available to use right inside the app. Then over at titles, you have end credits, subtitles, lower thirds, and openers. Then we can move over to find great selections of transitions. Then the effects tabs, you have a bunch of built-in and actually useful effects. And finally, the elements tab, which has a ton of really solid overlays that are all customizable. On top of that, you can click up here to jump over to their effects store where you can get free and premium assets like explosions and other great options. You download them here and they go right to your Filmora. So if you are looking to get into solid editing software without spending a ton of money, this is an excellent choice. But when I'm starting to cut a dialogue scene, the first thing I do is go through and grab the takes that I'm wanting to use. And if I have different angles like wide, medium, and close on one actor, I'll stack those to have options for each of those moments. Then once all that is brought in, I'll start shaping the scene. When we cut to each character, often with film riot sketches, the style lands on jumping to each character when they are speaking. A great way to add flow to a scene like this that has a mildly fast, bouncy back and forth is overlaying audio. You do this through J and L cuts, which is when the video or audio overlaps the previous or next clip, giving it that shape of a J or an L. The result is instead of having a hard cut like this,
isn't that supposed to make you stronger?
What?
Saying Shazam, isn't that supposed to make you someone stronger?
I said shajammies.
And what does that do?
It puts on my jams.
you have a more smooth and natural interaction like this.
Isn't that supposed to make you stronger?
What?
Saying Shazam, isn't that supposed to make you someone stronger?
I said shajammies.
And what does that do?
It puts on my jams.
I like to think of this in real life terms. When you're observing two people having a conversation, your eyes are always on the person speaking until the other one starts speaking, which pulls your attention toward them instead. But after you've gone through and chosen your pace and your progression, you want to go back through and really focus on sound. I'll often see dialogue scenes from new filmmakers having very obvious cuts in the audio between the shots. Since the mic is facing in opposite directions, you will often have different ambient sounds.
Isn't that supposed to make you stronger?
What?
Saying Shazam, isn't that supposed to make you someone stronger?
I said shajammies.
And what does that do?
It puts on my jams.
One simple way to correct this is by fading between the audio clips. Have the audio overlap and fade in and out. If one side has more noise than the other, you can grab some silence from that side where it's just noise and add it to the other clips, so they both feel like they're living in the same space. But the thing I do most often is denoise all my clips and add my own atmosphere back in. So I'll find a sound in Soundly that's the room tone I'm looking for and drop that below everything, and you have this consistent and unifying tone throughout, gluing it all together. And now we've looked at a lot of techniques to use when constructing your dialogue and some tips for editing those scenes. But I also wanted to point out that it's just as important to know when you should back off and let the scene live in the most basic way. Plant your camera and let the actors own it. And an unreal next level example of that is this incredibly acted scene from The Master.
Back to the start. Okay. Do you often think about how inconsequential you are? Yes. Do you believe that God will save you? No. Have you ever had sex with a member of your family? Yes. Are you lying? No. Who? Auntie Bertha. Where's your aunt now? I don't know, maybe home. Are you lying? No. Are you a liar? Yes. Have you killed anyone? Yes. Who? Japs in the war. Do you regret this? No. What are you running from? Maybe hurt a man, I think. Maybe he's dead, I don't know. Where? In Salinas, he stole a batch of my booze and he drank it. Does this booze you make poison? No, if you drink it, smart. Are you trying to poison me? No. Where's your father? Dead. How did he die? Drunk. Where's your mother? Where's your mother? Loony bin. She's psychotic. Yes. What is the name of your aunt? Bertha.
To have added anything extra or flashy to the scene would have been a sin, but Paul Thomas Anderson is another master of his craft and knew when to plant his camera and let his characters take the scene.
Tell me why you're not with her if you love her so much. I told her I'd come back and I never went back, and now I gotta get back to her. Why don't you go back? I don't know. Why don't you go back? I don't know. Close your eyes.
So how do you shoot a dialogue scene? And the answer is, it's entirely up to you. But looking at the confident and effective techniques of the masters like Tarantino, Spielberg, Scorsese, and others will give you a great head start at understanding how, and more importantly, why you should shoot it the way you ultimately choose to. And as always, it's important to note that this is my subjective view. Dive into these films, analyze them for yourself, figure out why it works for you, then chase that in your own way with your own unique voice. But that's it. Again, thank you to Filmora for sponsoring. Definitely give their software a look. You can download in the link in the notes below. And I'll see you next week when I wake up Leonardo DiCaprio while wearing an American flag.
Yeah, thanks, folks. That's us to the end of our lecture today. And yeah, I hope you gained a lot. You had a more insight on staging, blocking, multi-camera and single camera technique, as well as how to shoot your dialogue. Yeah. See you on the next lecture. Our next lecture will be on editing. Yeah, I'll just touch on a few editing techniques, how you can also have your own voice, how you use your EDL, your edit decision list, where your edit decision list is what you get from your camera log, from your contingency person or your data wrangler during your shoot. So you use that as your to make your create your edit decision list. Yeah, but we only talk about it tomorrow on our next lecture. So that's all for me from now, folks. Keep those phone calls rolling. You WhatsApp me, or you can email me, whatever way you at your disposal. You can just contact me. I'll help you all the way. Yeah, start shooting. And next week when we are in contact classes, we're gonna form ourselves into group, choose our scripts, do this script reading, a script conference, do the script analysis, and go straight to pre-production. Yeah, that's all from me for now, folks, and it's adios.